Hey, Kevin Purcell for Gotta Be Mobile, and we're looking at the Samsung Chromebook. This is the model that came out a little while back. It is a $250 notebook that runs the Chrome operating system, and as you can see, it has a pretty simple interface, and it really is a computer that runs entirely in the Chrome operating system. So let's go ahead and take a look at this little inexpensive Ultrabook, and we'll let you know whether we think it's worthy of using as a full-time computer, or maybe it isn't worthy of using at all. Alright, so we're going to give you a look at the top first, and it has a kind of attractive look despite the fact that it's plastic. Samsung just seems to love plastic. They make all their phones out of plastic. They make this cheap little notebook out of plastic. Of course, there's no way they'd get to the $250 price point if they used anything more sturdy than that. Now, as you notice on this side, what we have here is the SD card port and an audio port. You can plug your headphones in that have a microphone into one port and use it for both input and output. Across the front, there's nothing. There's just a slight little wedge here in order for you to open up the system. And along the left side, there's absolutely nothing. Here we'll show you the back of the system. That's where most of the interesting ports and connectors lie. Of course, this is for your power, and that's a power indicator light. This is an HDMI port, a USB 2.0 port, and one USB 3.0 port. And then this little door opens up to reveal a universal SIM card slot. Unfortunately, on this lower price model, that SIM card slot is not functioning. If you buy the slightly more expensive $329 model, then that would be working. You could get Verizon 3G for that price for 2 years at only 100 megabytes downloaded per month. In other words, basically just enough to check some email. Alright, so now we open it up and give you a look at the keyboard and trackpad. For the size notebook, you actually get a fairly decent sized trackpad here, and it's pretty responsive. The keyboard is also well laid out, and you get good responsiveness from the keys as you type. I'm a touch typist, and I feel like this is a good keyboard. I'm not compromising too much, despite the small size of this computer. This is one of the areas where the computer really shines, with both the keyboard and the trackpad. Now notice you also get a webcam up there. I don't really use it that much. I've just tested it just to make sure it works fine. The thing that I like about the display is that it's a matte display instead of a glossy display. If it was glossy, you'd have a hard time seeing it right now under direct light like this. Unfortunately, it's a very dim display. I've got it maxed out as far as brightness goes, and it may be difficult to tell, but when you get about 40%, which is where we often run our battery benchmarks here at notebooks.com, it's almost unusable, and so I had to run it more like at about 60%, and because of that, I think the battery life was probably lessened from what it could be. I don't think you'd really want to use this except in very, very dim light at under 60%. Most settings in a regular office, it'll take it at this setting or higher. I used it a little bit outdoors in direct sunlight, and even at its brightest level, it was extremely difficult to see the screen, and so that's very disappointing. Just give you a quick look at the bottom of the machine. Not much here, except here's the speakers. They're not very good. You can imagine speakers on the bottom of a computer wouldn't be great, but they're okay, you know, for the price that you're getting here. It's got the little feet on the bottom, non-skid. This right here, though, is an interesting port that most people probably won't even notice. If you want to reset your computer, this is what you use. One of the great things about Chrome OS is if it begins to behave in a strange manner, you can reset it and start it back up the minute you log in. You're going to have all your settings and apps back the way you had them. There's no reinstalling the operating system. That's not something a lot of people probably do very much, but for those who are kind of gearheads and like to tinker and play and then reformat and go back to factory default, that's a nice feature of Chrome OS. The real benefit of that ability to log in like that is that you can log in on this computer even if this isn't your notebook, and you can get to access to all of your software and apps and settings. And you'll notice down here in the corner, this is where you get information about what's going on in your system, your account login and things like that, connected to my Verizon Jetpack, whether Bluetooth is enabled, the sound, other settings are here. Now, the thing I wanted to mention, other than the fact that there's a restart, which I'm looking forward to seeing what that does, but notice it says I have 19% left with an hour and 12 minutes left on the battery. So you do the math, and that gives you over 5 hours of battery life, and we're experiencing that. Samsung promises about 6.5, and if you were to run it, again, as we said before, at a lower display brightness, then I can guarantee you'd get well over 6.5 hours, probably 7 or 8 hours. At full maximum, we're getting, like it says here, around 5 to 5.5 hours of battery life really easily. So it's got a decent battery on this computer. So we began by asking the question, could this serve as someone's full-time notebook computer? That would be difficult, in my opinion. Some people might enjoy using it full-time. First of all, if you always want a very light and portable machine with long battery life, and you're not interested in installing a lot of software on it, you're spending 100% of your time in your browser, then yeah, it would work great. Despite the fact that it's plastic, it's well made. However, for most of us, we want to be able to install some apps. Maybe you use Photoshop, or even, just you have to use Microsoft Office. Google Docs is a good alternative for simple editing. If you want a little more than that, you can find a couple of other better places. We've actually been using the beta version of iCloud's iWork apps, and it does a decent job of running those, despite the fact that they're really designed for Apple computers. But we're really pleased with this, and as a second computer at only $250, or maybe as a student notebook computer for a kid who spends all of his time online, I think it would probably do very well. You can't beat the price, and for $250, it's almost a throwaway machine if something goes wrong with it. I know that sounds like we're saying, $250 is nothing, but compared to other computers that are $500 to $2,500 for Apple computers, this is a really tempting machine, and that's why we picked one up, and I'm pretty glad that I did. I've been using it probably a third of the time that I do any computer work now. I'm doing it on this computer, whereas I use my my Mac for a lot of the heavy lifting. This I use for the simple stuff, and I think you could do that pretty well and enjoy it. You can go up a little bit if you need 3G connectivity. If you want a really advanced Chrome OS computer, there's the Chromebook Pixel, which is well over $1,000, and from what I understand, it's very well made hardware. There's a few other machines that are closer to this in price that you might want to take a look at, like an Acer that's closer to $200, an HP that's closer to $400. But we're pretty pleased with it, and pleasantly surprised by Chrome OS and the Samsung Chromebook. This has been Kevin Purcell for Notebooks.com with the Samsung Chromebook, and we'd call this a buy if you need it as a second computer. Thanks for watching.